It's the Practical Prayer Podcast on the New Thought Media Network. This is the pre-show. I am Bill over here. There's Carol over there. We're joining together today and had an experience last week with the technology. So forever there had been difficulties with Carol's audio, and our editor, ensconced over there in London, would take care of it. And last week something so stupid happened that made my audio sound horrible. My computer cleverly decided that instead of listening through happy, expensive Mr. Microphone right up here in the boom over my head, it would listen through the horrible little earbuds that I had in, and I sounded like I had a tin can over my head.
Can they fix it?
It's a podcast episode, so it's not the pristine audio that I like, but then again, I get to release my judgment and not take it personally, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So
Yeah.
before we came, by the way, I'm going to say to the folks who are joining us on New Thought Media Network that we are invite your comments and feedback and suggestions and observations and so forth, which you can put into the comments on your social media if you're watching us live. If you are watching not live, you can also get a hold of us by going to bethelight.com. It's down there, b-the-light.com. In the Practical Prayer Podcast section, there's a little feedback button, and back to us you may feed, so that we can respond to you from there if you're listening on the recording. So before we got into the on air here, I said a couple of things. So we were talking about my the pain in my side and my back had completely resolved. We were commiserating about that because everybody wants to be prosperous and loved until their body hurts or they're sick, at which point love is nice, prosperity is wonderful. Maybe I'll buy myself another doctor, but get this thing fixed.
Yes. Oh my God. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So I had an experience with some prayer working for that, and some other prayers that worked this week. And I also had I mentioned I had an experience in terrestrial radio. And of all the things that I talked about, Carol goes, ooh. Ooh. So I'll tell you the story about that. So I've been subscribing to this thing called Quoted. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, where they take supposed experts and match them up with journalists, supposed journalists who are looking for expertise. And they'll send stuff out from Newsweek or People magazine, looking for therapists, or from all sorts of different publications and so forth. And I've raised my hand a few times to volunteer to be on, be interviewed, and nobody's taken me up on it. It's been like 4 or 5 years. And last Tuesday, I got an invitation from the guy who's head of global media, suggesting that I pitch being on a local radio show where the host was going to perform the wedding ceremony for the co-host, and they needed an administrator to give them advice. And I wrote back and I said, yeah, I'm your guy. And 10 years doing comedy morning shows, and I'm in the wedding biz, so yes, I can help. He immediately connected me with the producer. It was 102.7 in New York, which, by the way, was a station that I listened to when I was growing up. It's different now. And so it was much less about weddings than it was about a comedy routine, about the host doing the wedding ceremony and the family fighting that it's not going to be done by a priest or in a church or whatever. So I played along, and so I got my toe back in terrestrial radio. So I was actually on the air last Thursday morning or Wednesday morning.
And you didn't tell me.
I'm telling you now.
No, well, that's past tense. You going on again?
If they invite me back, I will. But I will send you my clip of the recording.
Well, please do. That's interesting. Radio is always interesting to me.
It was interesting. And, I played it for a few people. They tell me, yes, I'm still funny. And we were playing it for laughs, so I was. And, I did my homework, so I was listening to them for about an hour before I went on. So I could do the callbacks to the jokes that they'd already been doing, or the drama they already had. So, and it reminded me of when I was a youth.
Yeah,
in my 20s and 30s when I did that.
That's exciting though. It really is.
Yeah,
I think anyway.
yeah, it was fun. It was fun.
Yeah.
It was fun. Would I want to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and go into a studio and sit there with other people with huge egos for a job? No, not particularly. Been there, done that. It's fun when it
Well,
works.
yeah. Yeah. Okay.
But this is the Practical Prayer Podcast.
Mm-hmm.
So I could tell you the stories about the prayers working. And several of them have been about, there's one, the friend has a daughter who's got a roommate. There's roommate problems, and the roommate problem has been going on forever, and there's anguish and conflict and so forth. There's 3 roommates. And I was invited to do a prayer on behalf of this situation by my friend for his daughter. And so I did. And, and knowing that everybody's in their perfect place, it's not like you have to win a court battle against the roommate. I said, as far as I'm concerned, the roommate could fall in love with somebody and move out. So he can move in with, they can move in with them. I'm fine with however this is coming together. And within a week, while the person who's living there was on vacation, was notified by the rental agent that the other person was gone and we're getting another roommate.
Just like that.
Just like that. I love stories like that.
So do I.
And I love
So do
stories like that.
Because it's all about, it just follows the principle, that you're talking about with practical prayer.
Mm-hmm.
I got a good one.
Yeah, what
I got a
happened?
good one. Well,
Do you want to talk about it during the episode once we get into it, or
why don't we do that? Because I think it really works well with practical prayer.
Okay, so you want to make that the episode be about prayer works?
Yes. Yeah, that's
All right.
what wasn't what I planned, but that sounds better because I wanted to tell you this anyway.
Okay, well then your plan becomes a fallback, and let's go ahead and start the episode.
A practical prayer is a prayer that works.
These discussions between Reverend Bill Marchiony and Carol Lawrence dive into the details of how it works and how to work it.
Reverend Bill is a New Thought minister and the author of Practical Prayer for Real Results.
Your new life begins with a new thought.
Carol Lawrence is on a spiritual quest, finding the New Thought teaching after decades on the pulpit in 3 different traditional denominations.
I've got some questions.
Together, they're exploring the philosophy and activities that come together from many of the world's religions to create the practical spirituality that is New Thought.
Welcome to the Practical Prayer Podcast. I'm Carol, here with Reverend Dr. Bill Marchiony.
I am
How
looking
you
forward to
doing?
today. I'm doing
Yeah,
well.
me too.
I'm doing well today because we sort of offhandedly decided that we're going to talk about prayer working. Because we got stories about, we call them prayer work stories, because the reason you do a prayer is because it changes something in your life. So in my group, New Thought Philadelphia, we get together, and on Sunday mornings after we do our opening prayer, we do prayer work stories. And it's not boasting, but it's sharing. Sometimes it sounds like boasting. Sometimes the things that happen are just so astounding that it's fun to hear the stories. But we both seem to have prayer work stories. So you tell me what the circumstance in the prayer was and then how it worked.
Okay. So I guess you can tell I'm so excited. My feet are not yet off the ground. Not yet on the ground. On the ground. Okay.
I knew what you meant.
Yeah. So you will agree, I'm sure, that music is really a central piece to ministry. Whether you have a center or a church or whatever, it's really, in some ways, in many ways. I mean, I'm not trying to take anything away from anybody, but it can make or break it. It
Oh,
really
yeah.
can.
Oh,
So,
absolutely.
yeah, and so that has always been a thorn in my flesh. my spiritual indigestion for years, like my whole pastoral career, except for the very first church I had. The music was pathetic.
You're not
And
telling
be-
tales out of school now. They don't think it was
No,
great.
no.
They're going to be offended in hindsight.
I don't think I have to worry about it. But
All right.
but it was so awful, and I don't want to be specific. I could just trust me. Was awful, and my husband used to encourage me, just start your own church. Start your own church. I said, no, I can't do that because, and I thought about it, but I knew what I needed to make it work, and that was good music, and I could not afford the level of music that I wanted because it's just not. So I would pray about it, and before I found practical prayer now, right? Okay, so I'm praying
Oh,
about it.
Jesus, please give me a good, talented
Yeah,
musician. I get it.
Any way you could put it. I wish I could just tell you. There were times when I just said, just stop the music. Let's just forget it. But anyway. So, and then, well, let me stop because now I'm starting to get yucky. All right. So I do wisdom tracks, spiritual wisdom tracks. And I don't need music. I was doing them for years. I don't need music, but it would be next level.
Mm-hmm.
And so I approached people from time to time. And then to get that music license, to be able to use music, it's not like it's going to break the bank. It's just that,
It's a thing.
It's a thing. So called people and they didn't return the call or whatever. And I'm like throwing my hands up. And then I heard a piece of music and it was like I couldn't ignore it. It just kept calling me back. So I said, let me see who this is. And I wrote to the guy and explained what I wanted and just said, if you're interested, just give me a, and I kept feeling, this is you though, this is you talking. I kept feeling a yes is coming. A yes is coming from this person. This is the middle of the night. I couldn't sleep. So I was doing other things because I just knew that the person was going to get back to me immediately with a yes. And I didn't want to wake up the next morning and see it. I wanted to see it right then. I know this sounds crazy, but
No, it
it's
doesn't.
like I can be like a little kid, especially when I know Christmas is coming, right?
Oh boy,
and
oh boy, oh boy, oh boy.
Yeah, and I never met this guy ever. At 4:28 a.m., a note came. It came, and I looked and I said, "This is it." And he was so kind. He said, "I would be delighted for you to use my music in any way that you want. There's 2 categories." So he told me what I could use, and the parameters were so like nothing. It's just nothing. And I don't want any money for it
Wow.
because I want it to be, what you described. And I'm sitting there and it wasn't like I was shocked. I wasn't shocked. And here's the thing that was really crazy about this. He lives with Muji. And you know Muji. Muji is a spiritual teacher over there in Portugal.
Mm-hmm.
He lives with Muji, and Muji was my very, very first exposure, let's say, to spiritual teaching. And I thought, this did not just happen. This just, like, what does Muji have to do with this? It was just a sweet connection, And
Yeah.
then when I thought about it, I said, you stayed up all night just doing stuff, holding the phone, waiting for this, thing that you knew was going to come. And you didn't even know what time it was in Portugal. I don't know what time it was. I'm not about crossing time zones. I'm just thinking about. So anyway, I could go on about how exciting that was, but let me just relate it to practical prayer.
Yeah. Well, it's daytime hours for them. He got back to you first thing in the morning his time, even though it was the middle of the night for you.
For me, I'm just waiting, not even thinking, you know. But here's the practical prayer thing. What did I do differently than I had done forever? Where music just would not, just always be out of reach. And I did remember finding a live group one time that I loved them, just couldn't cough up the money. So what's different about this? And I looked at everything, and then I thought, okay, just look down all the steps of the practical prayer and see where you, like, bingo, where did you hit it? Well, steps 1 and 2, no problem ever. Step 3, the affirmation, so to speak. And I kept feeling like, this is it. This is it. I heard this music. This is it. This has got to be mine. And I was so excited and just like thankful because I knew this was it. So that took care of step 1, step 2, step 3, and 4. And so it is, that was all in it because I could not imagine this person saying no.
Oh yeah, you knew that it was. That's why you stayed up with the phone until 4 in the morning.
I stayed. That was so crazy. It was good. I didn't even think about looking at
fun.
the time.
It was fun.
Yeah, and I was doing stuff and I just kept looking at the phone. I never imagined that it was going to be a no. I just never imagined that. And I knew that if I had to cough up some money, you know, I was like, okay, but I just couldn't see that being an obstacle.
No, you got consciousness and Muji involved. I mean, this is the universe just basically smiling at you and saying, watch this.
Yes.
Not only are you going to find music that you like, it's going to be from the first spiritual guide that you ever had. And it's going to come your way for free because the pieces are fitting together and your money doesn't make any difference.
When prayer works like that, everybody who's listening, let me tell you, you feel like you just want to faint. You just want to faint because it's not like it's too good to be true because it is true and you knew it was true. And it's like it had to happen because this is like it's just everything that you are right there. And let me add this too. All through the years, I can play by ear a little bit. I thought, the heck with this. I'll just play my own music.
No, we talked about
No.
that last week. You are not your favorite musician,
No.
among other things.
I just thought, well, maybe I could just do a little. This is a totally ridiculous idea. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Every Sunday morning we have a live musician who does original stuff, and it's a singer-songwriter thing, so it's usually one, sometimes two people. And the New Thought Philly has been doing that every week. That's one of our commitments, is live original music. And I love it. And there's the possibility of me singing, but that would drive everybody out of the room. So we're not going to do that. I'd drive myself out of the room if I did that.
there's so many ways that you work it, and everybody has the issue. I won't say problem. It's, because it's a budgetary issue for many. And people use CDs, and the CDs are lovely, but they're not live,
Right.
And so Spirit is relegated to the timing and the track on the CD. So, yeah, so I'm pretty up there, but I was so excited I started to get in touch with you earlier, and tell you, but then I thought, no,
You thought, no, it's 4:35 in the morning. I can't do that.
let's my poor husband, he just said, I don't know what just happened, but it's got to be great. So, congrats. And he just went back to sleep. I guess I was a little noisy.
As well, you should be. I mean, that's what happens when the pieces fit together. It's astounding. It's awesome. It's wonderful. I've been having experiences with prayer work stories lately. And people have been asking me to do prayer because either they or someone they know is going in for surgery in one form or another. And I have a new favorite prayer for people who are going into surgery. And it is a prayer that is completely aligned with the surgeon's ego. You know, surgeons are renowned for having, large egos because they're going to cut people's bodies open and make them healthier. And so the prayer is that that everything goes together perfectly and the surgeon is able to claim a perfect outcome and know that he was responsible. He gets full credit for how great the surgery went.
That one's got to work. You talk about all things being in alignment. You nailed it right there. You nailed it. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's perfect. And that's actually based on a story. My brother had his hip replaced. This is years ago. And he's a skier. And so he went skiing and he happened to pair up with another guy who was an orthopedic surgeon. And he's telling a story about his hip replacement. And the guy knows his surgeon. And so as they're skiing together, the guy's saying, wow, you're skiing really well. Your doctor had a great outcome. This was a great surgery. What a great success for him. Never said anything about how well my brother was doing. He kept talking about my brother's surgeon. ran to his wife at lunchtime when they stopped for a hot cocoa and he says, look at the great result that the surgeon got. My brother's going, about me.
Yeah.
I'll play into that. Sure, that's their game. Sure, let's play to
I've
win.
met him. I was having knee replacement surgery ages ago, and I had to stop the surgeon while we were talking. I said, hello, there's a person connected to these knees.
Right.
Okay, try to remember that. Try.
Right, the knee bone's connected to the personality up here.
Yeah, he's going to tell me how many knees he's fixed over a life. Listen, these are the only ones I have. These are the only ones I'm interested in. Okay? Let's try to focus here. And he just looked at me. I said, yeah, I'm saying this. I'm really saying this.
Yeah, kind of important over here. Let's take a break and continue talking about prayer and prayer working. Are you ready to get results? Now, that's not a rhetorical question. Are you ready to get results? RUR2GR. That's actually the abbreviation for the steps in a practical prayer. Recognition, unification, realization, gratitude, and release, with a couple of extra steps in there in case some doubt creeps in along the way. RUR2GR. This class is about the prayer technique that's common to all of the spiritual practices and religions in the most effective prayers that they have. And by effective, I mean that the prayer works. It actually creates a change in the experience of the person doing the prayer. It gets a result. We're going to begin with theory, and then we're going to take it into practice. By the end of the class, you will have your very own practical prayer that will help create transformation in your life.
Welcome back to the Practical Prayer Podcast. I'm Carol, here with Reverend Dr. Bill Marchiony.
Oh, goodness.
Having
We're talking about
great-
prayer working.
Yeah. And when it works, it works. And I'm sitting here thinking, am I always this giddy about prayer working? Because I can tell you prayer works, and I don't have any doubt about that. I've experienced it, especially with practical prayer, and you get it all straight, And the hardest part for me was the step 3, with all of that business. If it's not working, if you can't say it, with conviction and all of that.
Right.
When
you get that objection in your mind and all that.
That was like, I got to really stop trying to deal with the objection. To me, it was like 2 weeks worth of work. So I had to put the prayer on hold while I deal with the objection. But I mean, it's the coolest thing, really. It's just a great, I don't know if I would say experience. I would think a great learning, because once you get it, it is there for you always. And you feel really comfortable with recognizing that in yourself when you're praying. And if you're not transitioning from or what is the term we use? Deconstructing.
Oh, you mean
From
getting out of traditional prayer.
Yeah, if you're not getting out of traditional prayer, it's probably quite a bit easier. But in traditional prayer, it's like moving a mountain. But once you get it, and you get it. And that's just, And I forgot to tell you this part. The first thing you always say is turn away from the thing you don't want to the thing that you do want. And that was the one thing I was conscious of, the very first thing I was conscious of when I was thinking about this request for this music. My mind thought about the many times you did not get a response, or the response wasn't what you wanted. And I just said, turn away from what you don't want and turn to what you do want. And I want this person to feel an alignment with what I'm doing and what they're doing. That's what I want. And it
Yep.
was so instant. And I want to say Muji's name never came. I never mentioned Muji until it was over, because I just didn't want that in the mix. I knew he lived with Muji, but I didn't
Okay.
want to. I didn't want to bring that up. But afterwards, I just threw that in, because to me it's like an amazing circle. You know, it just it. But my whole point was in this time was turning away. I think there's some power in turning away from what you don't want to what you do want, because when you turn away, you're not justifying, you're not trying to fix it, you're not trying to remember when, and if I just forget it, just forget it.
You brought up two interesting points as far as I'm concerned. And the first one is that traditional prayer, once you learn the technique of practical prayer, the traditional prayer technique of identifying some power outside of ourselves that we can then worship and ask a favor for and go through this whole process, and how do we deal with that second or third party to the result of our prayer, it's really complicated.
Yes.
Practical prayer is so simple that it has been complicated just to make it not be something that we're intimately involved in, to bring in this external power. And that's one of the things that's most difficult. So it can't possibly be that easy.
That's the biggie.
It can't possibly be this easy. What do you mean?
Even if in the first part, because Jesus is a big part of the traditional prayer. You really don't have it unless Jesus is. So in the practical prayer, or in the reconstruction of the
Right.
prayer, I think you have to figure out what to do with Jesus. And getting over that is difficult, because there's guilt involved and just a whole myriad of things that you have to get by. So then it's identifying who God is, in the beginning. So that's where the resolution of the Jesus problem comes in.
Yep.
If you don't fix it in that first step, you're done.
Right. Right. And trying to get back to what Jesus actually said about the whole thing when he was doing it. He said, this is how you do it. Do the same thing that I'm doing and you're good. Because he didn't say worship me. He said, do your prayers this way. And he taught the disciples how to do it. They sent the message, go heal people. And they did. And nobody thought anything of it. It's like, if those 12 can do it, so can you. But we make it more complicated than it needs to be.
Yeah, because then you're up against the Our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. That's a whole nother thing that was presented as the prayer model. It's a model, but,
Right.
in traditional church, it is the words to say.
And nobody
So
notices that right before that, he saes, don't pray by vain repetition, like the heathens do. And
But,
they repeat the Lord's Prayer.
You just, you listen. First of all, it's about reading the whole chapter. How about you read the whole book? But not the whole Bible, just read the whole chapter. And that, but the problem,
It starts, Our Father is actually the middle of the line. If you start at the beginning of the line, he says, this is a demo. Do like this. And then he starts it. So, okay, but we're both on the same side. We're not going to argue with each other at all here.
no, not at all. It's that I understand the transition. I deeply understand the transition. So when I say things, I always want to apologize and say to anybody listening, I mean no disrespect whatsoever.
Right.
But you do need to understand that there is a little bit of a learning curve,
Yeah.
and it can be pretty painful, but it's all about what you want. If you want something, there's a cost, no matter what it is. Right? So
There you go.
and that's what it comes down to, I think.
Ernest Holmes says we pay for everything in spiritual coin, which I think is likely to be true. So the other big thing that comes up is what I call the pivot. Because when we are having an experience that we don't want, it's really easy to focus on that. You're getting your knee replaced, and what's happening is your knee is hurting, and you're concerned that there's going to be a problem with the surgery, and that you're not going to be able to walk afterwards. Well, that's not what you want to be thinking about. What you want to be thinking about is skipping through life joyously, comfortably, having paid the bills and gotten through the experience, and forgetting which knee it was that got replaced. That's always the goal. Which knee was it? Oh, I think it was my left one. Have you had that experience?
Listen, in my experience, I had both done at the same time.
So you knew which knee it is.
Yeah, I knew which one it was, but nothing prepares you for the pain. But let me say this, based on what you did say, you've got to have something that you prefer.
Right.
And thinking about not having any pain anymore probably might not be exactly what you're thinking right then, because you're going to have some bone surgery is awful. It's just awful. But for me, the thing I looked at was new sneakers. I'm going to get a new pair of sneakers, and I'm getting them in July.
There you go.
That was my biggie, because I love sneakers, and my sons were doting over me, and I knew that they were going to take me to get these sneakers. I didn't know what kind, didn't matter. In July, I'm going to have these sneakers. So that's what, you turn whatever it takes.
Yeah, open to that possibility. So we're recording this episode on St. Patrick's Day. And I bring that up because on the morning meditation today, one of the participants said, let's bring into the meditation and the prayer a roof that's not leaking. I was like, it rained here in Philadelphia. Did you have an experience of a leaky roof? And she said, well, yes, there's some water on the floor. And the reason I mentioned St. Patrick's Day is because he was renowned for driving the snakes out of Ireland. That's the whole reason for St. Patrick's Day. That's the reason that we celebrate St. Patty. And you know what you need in order to make that miracle happen? A country full of snakes. If it weren't for a country full of snakes, there'd be no need for St. Patrick, and there'd be no celebration on St. Patrick's Day. The pivot is when we turn from looking at the snakes and the problem that the snakes are creating and turn our attention to what we want instead, which is green beer and bagels and a celebration once a year. I mean, I don't think it was a direct connection between those. But the same thing. If we're looking at the little buckets of water on the floor underneath where the roof has leaked, what we want is not for the buckets of water to go away. We want is to have the integrity of the roof be sound. And depending on what kind of a homeowner you are, perhaps it's something easy and prompt and affordable and not disruptive. And it's just as likely as anything else, but we need to make that turn. We need to make that pivot, because we can sit there complaining about the problem. Man, if your country were full of snakes, how long could you spend complaining about that? Probably quite a while. You got to stop complaining about the snakes and know what you're going to have after. Because that's what we're claiming. That's what we're putting into our intention. That's when we pivot and turn away from the experience to the desired state. I'm turning away from these current protein-based needs that are not serving me to the new hardware-based needs, which are going to be better. And look past whatever the transition is going to be and know that I'm getting sneakers.
Yeah, but whatever it is, it's got to be, how important is it to you? For me, it's like, it's always, how much do I want it? Do I still want to wallow around in this, or do I want something else? And I think it's when you decide you want something else more bad enough, you'll make that pivot.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And there's a whole bunch of spiritual practices we can go through to find out what it is that's keeping us stuck in our pre-pivot state. You know, do I like telling the story about just exactly how crappy my life is because of the snakes or the knees or the roof or the whatever? Am I ready to graduate from that and start talking about something different and not having that dramatic interlude that I can play in my life? I don't know. I don't know. You seem to have gone from not having music to having music, and it seems like a pretty happy thing to me.
It's I'm still there, you know. I'm not trying to get out of it. I'm trying to like feel this for as long as I can because I want to remember every single minute. What did I say? When did it? And it's not just what you say; it's what you mean. You know.
And it's how you feel.
Yeah, and I can't tell you, and I certainly wouldn't try to tell you on the air how horribly frustrating it has been over the years dealing with no music, the music problem. It's and there's no rhyme or reason for it because music is everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
But how do I get the music that I need? You know, at one point, I don't even care whether it's what I need. Just give me something that sounds like it's not a lot of mistakes and just
Okay,
go.
so
Yeah,
I'm gonna set up a scenario for you, and then we're gonna take another break. And the scenario is the musician who you found, who it turns out you have a long time connection with, says, "Yeah, go ahead and use my music for whatever it is you want to use it for." You're gonna produce something using that music, and you play it back. You're gonna share it with the musician. It is completely possible that there will then be a line of musicians saying, "Oh, that thing was so cool. Will you use my music, please?"
it could be.
You know that's
It could.
possible, right?
Yeah, I do. I
Okay.
do. Yeah,
Okay.
I do.
Yeah. So
I'm
so
just
so then you go to auditioning musicians and having a line. That's
I
okay. And
I guess
they're
that
all
would
trying
be
to top each other.
that would be really, I guess, okay. I'm just right now. I'm just so ridiculously happy, you
Yeah,
know, because
your program's working, and you don't need that to happen. I'm just offering that up as a new possibility. Let's.
and it's probably going to happen.
It's probably going to happen. Let's take another
Okay.
break, and then we're going to do a prayer on pivoting.
Learn to put practical prayer to work in your life. The steps are simple to learn and let you begin to get real results to create the life of your dreams immediately. Reverend Bill Marchiony's widely acclaimed book, Practical Prayer for Real Results, gives you a clear summary of the New Thought principles behind practical prayer and the series of easy-to-understand steps found in the most effective prayers from religions and spiritual practices all over the world and throughout history. Practical prayer is not a replacement for your religion or practice. It's a technique to make the work you do in consciousness even more effective. The book includes 40 prayers on various topics that you can adapt as needed and use as your own. Practical Prayer for Real Results is available in paperback, Kindle, and audiobook on Amazon or at b-the-light.com. That's b-the-light.com.
Welcome back to the Practical Prayer Podcast. I'm Carol, here with Reverend Dr. Bill Marchiony. And
This has just been an exciting, and it's a fun conversation because it's about prayers and the success and the results that we have when the prayer works. And the title of the book is Practical Prayer for Real Results. And there was some discussion when I was publishing the book about real. What's real? But when I say real results, that's a real result. That's something changing in your life experience. The truth of the universe hasn't changed at all, but the distribution and the experience of it is the thing that does change. So a practical prayer is a pretty simple process for inviting a different experience into our life. And we've been talking a little bit about the astounding change that happens when we go from something we've always had to having something new. And that's wonderful. That's kicking your heels up, which you couldn't imagine doing before you got your knees replaced.
no,
And now if you needed to, you probably could, whether you want to or not. And as we go through all of these experiences of healing and growth and transformation, sometimes we forget what it was like before. But it's important to remember, because that can inform the way that we're going to do the process the next time. And the pivot is actually the key to inviting a new experience. Because I've been going through my life, and so have we all, having the experience that we've been having. And at some point, we realize this is completely unacceptable, and I need something different. Or sometimes we just notice, this really isn't working for me. Is that all there is? I want something different here. And the experience that we're having could be with a relationship, it could be with a job, it could be with the experience of prosperity that we've been having, could be health, could be some comfort, part of our body, and the way that that's working. And when we are able to look at that experience and say, the experience I would prefer is, and then name the new experience that we want to have instead, that's the pivot. So it's when we stop looking at what we don't want or what we've had so far and set our intention for the new experience that we do want. That lets us define the purpose of our prayer. And once we have a purpose of the prayer, the rest of it all comes together. So let's do a prayer today, not on what it is that we're going to have after we've done the pivot and the purpose and the rest of the prayer. Let's do the prayer on inviting the pivot, on inviting the awareness of that which is no longer serving, and the idea that we could actually latch onto for the good that we're seeking. So if it's comfortable, go ahead and close your eyes, turn away from the world around you, because the world around us is the way that it's been up until now. Important to have it there, but it has nothing to do with who we are, and certainly has nothing to do with who we're going to be. It is the story of what has brought us to this moment. There is that entire series of events and circumstances and coincidences that have led to this particular place, this particular time. And we could look back at them and blame them and say, well, my knee hurts because of this, or my poverty is because of that, or my sad relationship status is because of him or her or them or those or whatever. And as soon as we let go of the need to tell the story about how we got to where we are and accept this is where I am now, we're then free to pivot. And instead of looking back at the story or just expecting that the story is going to continue the way that it's been continuing, we're free to turn into a new direction. We can turn towards that new experience that we desire instead. It could be straight ahead of us. It could be up a hill. It could be down into a valley. It could be to the left or to the right. It could be a convoluted path that's going to take us to that next experience that we are seeking. And the willingness to look away from that which has been occurring and our experience of life up until now, and set the intention for that new experience that we prefer instead. We don't need to define how it's going to happen. We don't need to map out what the steps are going to be. The opportunity is to turn our awareness away from all of this and towards that one infinite creative power, that one divine presence, that one love that shares itself as all of its creation. We call it God or Spirit or nature or the Big Bang. Whatever it is that we call it, it is that one creative source that creates everything. And since it creates everything, it has created each of us. It has created all of the experiences that we've had up until now, and it is now creating that awareness of the new experience that we're desiring instead. As we open to the guidance, as we invite that infinite creative power to illuminate us with the awareness of what our next perfect steps are to be, we naturally pivot. We turn our intention and attention and next steps towards that which is going to bring satisfaction, joy, harmony, peace, prosperity, comfort, uplift, love, creativity, whatever good we're seeking into our lives. That act of inviting the infinite to suggest that which is going to be a more uplifting and harmonious experience activates the pivot. And we turn towards the good that we seek, and then we're on a path toward it. And that infinite creative power that creates everything is creating that goodness for and through and as us now. There are steps for us to take. There are things that we get to let go of. There are awarenesses of bigger events going on that are available. And all of that good is now coming together differently for each of us, but the same process for all of us. That is good unfolding right now. And the wonderful thing is that there is nothing that stands in the way of it. There is no greater power that's going to keep it from happening. As we partner with the infinite is partnering with us and bringing this newness into our experience. So this is what's going on now, and I'm so grateful for it. I'm grateful for the good. I'm grateful for the results and the prayer work stories we get to tell. Grateful for the willingness of each one to do his or her part in bringing this goodness about, to engage in the process, to make room for the miracles, to pivot, and be in the process of good unfolding. So with gratitude for all this good, I speak this word and release it into that same creative law that's been creating since the beginning of time. And I know that it now is creating this. And so I let it be. And so it is.
The Practical Prayer Podcast with Reverend Bill Marchiony and Carol Lawrence is a production of BeTheLight.com,
be-the-light.com,
where you can find more information about practical prayer for real results.
Our theme is by Music of Wisdom. You can learn about the spiritual community of New Thought Philadelphia with daily guided meditations,
Weekly celebrations of spirit,
and Reverend Bill's classes in practical spirituality
at newthoughtphilly.org.
And begosh and begorra, that is the Practical Prayer Podcast for St. Patty's Day. Oh, that was fun. I didn't realize that you'd had both knees replaced at the same time.
Yeah.
Okay.
That
That
doesn't
takes some
happen
nerve.
often.
No, that takes some nerve.
That's what they said. But I knew it didn't really, because if I got one done and it hurt, I wasn't coming back ever again. I knew that. So it's all
Yeah, I
or
didn't-
nothing, guys.
Yeah, I've got all of my joints are as they have been, but I had a foot surgery. Probably I was in my early 30s. And I had bunions and Taylor's bunions on both feet, which is like the big knobby protrusion on the big toe and the little toe. My feet were the size of swim fins, and they were very painful. And I needed to get them both done, but I also had a newborn who was about to start toddling. So I got the right one done, and I got the left one done. And then I learned to walk at the same time she did. my toddler's 32 now, so it's been a bit. And I intentionally got them done one at a time, because if you get one done, then you're on crutches. But if you get them both done, you're in a wheelchair. And I wasn't going to do that.
It's not fun, but it was better than the alternative
Yeah.
for me.
And the first one hurt a lot more than the second one, because for the second one, I knew what to do. It's like, keep that thing elevated. Keep that foot up, regardless of what else happens. Don't be brave. So, it takes a long time for the swelling to go down. The swelling on the second one went down before the swelling on the first one did. So that was my lesson. Yeah, I should have kept your leg elevated the first time.
You know what? There's another piece of that story, just real quick. I needed music to do something I was doing with Rumi. And I got a piece that was supposed to be in the public domain. And I always checked, to look for requirements and all that. It was clean, that's what I call it. And, the social media platform came after me. And next thing I know, it was like copyright infringement and profit sharing or something like that.
You're not allowed to make any money off of the YouTube.
Yeah, and I'm thinking, I'm not trying to do this. I heard it was okay. I'm just using, they miscategorized it or had it in the wrong category. Okay, like I'm not going to jail or anything, am I?
No.
It was a mess. It was a mess. So I was pretty much like, forget this altogether.
Yes, automation. It's supposed to help us. And sometimes it does. And sometimes it's confounding. Well,
Just got to do your homework.
yep. Congratulations on the music. I will look forward to hearing a track. I will share the track of me being on the radio with you at some point. And and thank you to everybody who's listening in on New Thought Media Network. This is the post show. We finished recording the episode, which you heard because we played the end of the episode. And done with the chit chat now. Again, the reminder that if you'd like to put in a comment, you can go to the website b-the-light.com. There it is, right down there. And prayer requests, suggestions, questions, topics, anything that you want to share with us, we will take under joyful, loving consideration. Whatever that means. So, Carol, thank you as always.
My
Have
pleasure.
yourself a green beer or whatever it is you do for St. Patrick's Day.
It won't be a green beer, I can promise you that, but
I
I'll
can
find
imagine
something.
so. Yeah, my birthday is on the 16th of March, so I never care about what's going on for St. Patrick's Day. So there's that. Have a great day.
Please help us say thank you to our organizational sponsors, including the Hefferland Foundation, Affiliated New Thought Network, International New Thought Alliance, Science of Mind Archives and Library Foundation, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown, New Thought Philadelphia, Planned Happiness Institute, Summit Center for Spiritual Living, One Heart Retreats, Center for Spiritual Living on the Lake, Unity Kitchener, Unity Spiritual Center Ottawa, Om Center for Spiritual Living, Satya Center, Begin Within Ministries, Center for Spiritual Living North Jersey, Unity of Savannah, and the Center for Spiritual Living Seattle, as well as all of our individual donors. Thank you for being part of the New Thought Media Network. Please like, share, and subscribe. New Thought Media Network, positively inspiring.